My in-laws took my children, claiming I was an unfit mother. But in court, the judge said, "See you in 2 years." Mr. and Mrs. watched their smug faces fall apart. Trinity's voice pulled me from my shock. My 12-year-old daughter stood in the doorway of our kitchen, her brother Stephen peeking around her shoulder. Both of them wore the same worried expression I'd seen too often since their father's death. I forced a smile, quickly folding the letter and tucking it into my pocket. "Everything's fine, sweetheart. How about some breakfast?" "You don't look fine," Stephen said, climbing onto one of our kitchen stools. At 10, he was already too perceptive for his own good. Just like his father. The doorbell rang before I could respond. Through the glass, I saw Victoria's perfectly coiffed silver hair and Kent's tall frame. My in-laws had impeccable timing, as always. "Kids, go upstairs and finish getting ready for school," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "But we haven't eaten," Stephen started. "Now please." They must have heard something in my tone because they went without further argument. I waited until they were upstairs before opening the door. "Willow dear," Victoria said, her smile not reaching her eyes. "We need to talk." "About this?" I pulled out the letter. "A custody suit? Really?" Kent cleared his throat. "It's for the best. The children need stability." "Stability?" My voice cracked. "Their father died 3 months ago, and you think tearing them away from their mother will give them stability?" Victoria pushed past me into the house. "Look at this place, Willow." Dishes in the sink, laundry visible from the living room. Jermaine would be devastated to see his children living like this. My phone buzzed. A text from June. "On my way. Don't let them in." Too late for that warning. "I'm a single mother working full-time while grieving my husband," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. "Some dishes in the sink don't make me an unfit mother." "No," Kent agreed, "but your history of depression does." I froze. "What?" "We have records of your therapy sessions from college," Victoria said, examining her manicured nails. "Post-traumatic stress disorder after that car accident, anxiety, depression, not exactly stable parent material." The room spun slightly. "Those records were private." "How did they get out?" June's voice cut through my panic. She stood in the doorway, her usually friendly face hard with anger. "Or I'm calling the police. We're concerned grandparents visiting our grandchildren," Victoria said smoothly. "You're trespassing," June countered, "already dialing, and harassment is a crime in this state." Kent grabbed Victoria's arm. "We'll go. But this isn't over, Willow. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." After they left, June hugged me tight as I finally let the tears fall. "They're trying to use my therapy against me," I whispered. "Who does that?" "Monsters," June said firmly, "but we're not letting them win. I know a lawyer, Felicity Wong. She specializes in family law, and she's absolutely brilliant. We're calling her right now." Upstairs, I heard movement, the kids getting ready for school. Their world still somewhat normal despite everything crumbling around them. I thought of Jermaine, of his last words to me in the hospital. "Take care of our babies, Will. Don't let anyone come between you and our kids." I wiped my eyes and straightened my shoulders. "Make the call." June squeezed my hand as she dialed, and I heard Trinity calling from upstairs about missing homework. Normal life wasn't going to pause for this battle. I had to find a way to fight while keeping their world stable. "Felicity? Hi. This is June Underwood. I have a friend who needs your help urgently." "Yes, it's a custody case, but there's more to it. The grandparents are trying to use private medical records." As June explained the situation, I went to the kitchen to make breakfast. The kids would need to eat before school, dishes in the sink or not. Victoria and Kent might have money and connections, but they had forgotten one crucial thing. I was their mother, and I would fight with everything I had to protect my children. They wanted a war? Fine. But they were about to learn that underestimating me was their first mistake. "These photos have been doctored," Felicity said, spreading the evidence photos across her desk. "Look at the timestamps. They don't match the metadata." I leaned forward, studying the images that Victoria and Kent had submitted to the court. They showed my house in complete disarray with empty wine bottles scattered across the coffee table and what appeared to be drug paraphernalia in the background. "But I started." "I know," Felicity interrupted, her dark eyes sharp. "That's exactly why these caught my attention. The lighting's wrong, the shadows don't match, and whoever did this forgot that digital images leave traces." June, who had been quietly examining the photos, suddenly grabbed one. "Wait a minute. This mess they photographed, that's from Victoria's own house. Look at the curtains and the reflection. Those are her hideous designer drapes that she wouldn't shut up about at last year's Christmas party." Felicity's eyebrows shot up. "Are you sure?" "Absolutely. I'd recognize that pattern anywhere. She paid some ridiculous amount for them and made sure everyone knew it." My phone buzzed. A text from Trinity. "Grandma Victoria just picked Stephen up from school. Said you knew about it?" My heart stopped. "They took Stephen." "What?" June and Felicity said in unison. I showed them the text. They don't have permission to pick him up. His school knows this. Felicity was already dialing. This is Attorney Felicity Wong. I need to speak to Principal Martinez immediately. Yes. I'll hold. June grabbed her car keys. I'll drive. We'll get him back. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to Victoria and Kent's sprawling mansion. My hands were shaking as I rang the doorbell. Felicity right beside me. Victoria opened the door, feigning surprise. Willow, we were just about to call you. Stephen wasn't feeling well. Save it, Felicity cut in. You violated custody agreements by removing a minor from school without parental consent. Return him now or we're calling the police. I'm his grandmother, Victoria snapped. I have rights. You have nothing, Felicity corrected. And this little stunt, it's going in my motion to the judge tomorrow morning. Stephen appeared behind Victoria looking confused. Mom, what's going on? We're going home, honey, I said, holding out my hand. Come on. He started forward, but Kent appeared, placing a hand on his shoulder. Stephen, buddy, we thought you might want to stay here tonight. Your room is all set up. Remove your hand, Felicity said, her voice ice cold as she held up her phone. I'm recording this, and I've already texted the police. Your choice. Kent's face reddened, but he dropped his hand. Stephen ran to me, and I wrapped my arms around him. This isn't over, Victoria called as we walked away. We have more evidence. You mean like these doctored photos? Felicity held up her briefcase. I look forward to discussing them in court, along with the illegal access of private medical records and today's attempted kidnapping. In the car, Stephen was unusually quiet. Mom, he finally said, Grandma and Grandpa said you were sick, that you couldn't take care of us properly. My heart cracked. Honey, look at me. Are you hungry? He nodded. Are you clean? Dressed? Do you have what you need for school? Another nod. That's because I take care of you every day. Yes, I went to therapy in college after a car accident that scared me. That doesn't make me sick. It made me stronger, smarter, and a better mom because I learned how to handle tough times. Like now? He asked softly. Exactly like now. Back at my office, Felicity spread out more documents. They've been planning this for months. Look at these bank transfers. They hired a private investigator right after Jermaine's funeral. But why? June asked. Why go to all this trouble? Felicity tapped her pen against a document. That's what's bothering me. This feels personal. Very personal. Willow, did Jermaine ever mention any conflicts with his parents, especially his mother? I thought back, remembering late-night conversations with my husband. He once mentioned that Victoria never forgave him for something, but he wouldn't elaborate, said it was ancient history. Nothing's ancient history when it comes to family, Felicity said. And I think that's our key. June, can you dig into Victoria's past? Social media? Newspaper archives? Anything you can find? June nodded. I'm on it. Looking at the fabricated evidence spread across the desk, I felt a chill. They're not just trying to take my kids, are they? They're trying to destroy me completely. Yes, Felicity agreed, but they made one crucial mistake. What's that? She smiled grimly. They left a paper trail, and I'm very, very good at following trails. You need to see this. June burst into my kitchen, laptop in hand. It was nearly midnight, but neither of us had been sleeping much lately. I found something in an old society page from ago. She placed the laptop in front of me. The yellowed newspaper scan showed a younger Victoria standing beside a man who wasn't Kent. The headline read, Local business mogul's daughter calls off high-profile wedding. Keep reading, June urged. My eyes scanned the article. Victoria Matthews, daughter of industrialist Robert Matthews, has cancelled her engagement to James Richardson, citing irreconcilable differences. The merger between Matthews Industries and Richardson Corp is expected to proceed as planned. Now look at this. June pulled up another article dated 3 months later. Matthews Industries files for bankruptcy following failed merger. The pieces started falling into place. She was supposed to marry for business, wasn't she? And then Jermaine came along. June said softly, her only son, who was supposed to take over the family business and restore their fortune. Instead, he became a teacher and married me. I finished, a nobody from the wrong side of town. My phone rang. Felicity, turn on the news, she said without preamble. Channel 7. The TV flickered to life, showing Kent standing outside the courthouse. We're simply concerned grandparents, he was saying. Our son's death revealed disturbing patterns in our daughter-in-law's behavior. We're acting in the best interests of our grandchildren. That's not the interesting part, Felicity said. Watch who's standing behind him. The camera panned slightly, showing a familiar face that made my blood run cold. Is that James Richardson? Felicity confirmed, Victoria's ex-fiancé. He's been funding their legal battle against you. But why after all these years? Revenge, June said. Victoria lost him his merger. Now they're working together to take everything from you. A knock at the door made us all jump. Trinity appeared in her pajamas looking worried. "Mom, I found something in Dad's old study." She held out a sealed envelope. Jermaine's handwriting clear on the front. "Open if anything happens to me." My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a letter and a USB drive. "Dear Will," I read aloud. "If you're reading this, something's happened to me. There are things you need to know about my parents. They're not who they pretend to be." The drive contains proof of what they did to cover up the real reason Matthews Industries went bankrupt. Mom didn't just cancel a wedding. She and Dad orchestrated the company's collapse for the insurance payout. People lost everything, including their lives. I found out last year and confronted them. They swore they'd changed, but I don't trust them. Protect our children, Will. Don't let them inherit this legacy of lies. Love, Jay. Felicity's voice was tight with excitement. "This changes everything. June, can you access that drive?" June plugged it into her laptop, and we watched as decades-old documents filled the screen. Bank transfers, emails, and most damning of all, a video of Victoria and Kent discussing the scheme with James. "They're all in it together," I whispered. "They always were." "Mom," Trinity's voice was small. "Is that why Dad was so weird about us spending time with them?" I pulled her close. "Your dad was protecting you, sweetheart. Just like I'm trying to do now." My phone buzzed with a text from Stephen. "Grandma's here again. She's talking to my teacher." "That's it," Felicity snapped. "I'm filing for an emergency restraining order first thing in the morning. June, get that video authenticated. I want it ready for court." "What about the press?" June asked. "Kent's out there spinning his story." "No," I said firmly. "We do this right through the courts. I won't let them say I tried to manipulate public opinion." Felicity nodded approvingly. "Smart, but we need to move fast. They'll know something's up when we file the restraining order." Trinity hugged me tighter. "Dad knew, didn't he? That's why he wrote the letter." "Your dad was always the smartest person I knew," I said. "He just wanted to protect his family. And now we'll protect each other," she said with a determination that brought tears to my eyes. June looked up from the laptop. "These documents, they implicate James in at least 3 cases of corporate fraud. No wonder he's helping them. If this gets out, they all go down." Felicity gathered her things. "Get some sleep, all of you. Tomorrow, we start fighting back. And Willow, we're not just going to win custody, we're going to make sure they can never hurt another family again." As I tucked Trinity back into bed, I thought about Jermaine's letter. Even after death, he was still protecting us, still fighting for our family. "We won't let you down," I whispered to his memory. "I promise." "They've been paying off teachers," Felicity announced, dropping a stack of bank statements on her desk, 3 of them to be exact, all ready to testify about your unstable behavior at school events. I recognized one of the names. "Miss Peterson. But she's Stephen's favorite teacher." "Was," June corrected, scrolling through her tablet until Victoria deposited $10,000 into her account last month. The betrayal stung, but I forced myself to focus. "What about the restraining order?" "Granted this morning," Felicity said. "They can't come within 500 feet of you or the kids, but that's not the biggest news." She pulled out her phone, playing a voicemail on speaker. "Miss Wong?" A trembling voice filled the room. "This is Margaret, Victoria, and Kent's former housekeeper. I have information about what really happened the night Mr. Germain confronted his parents. Please call me back." June sat up straighter. "The night before his accident, my heart stopped." "Are you saying we're not saying anything yet?" Felicity cut in. "But I'm meeting Margaret in an hour. Want to come along?" The diner was nearly empty when we arrived. Margaret sat in a corner booth, nervously shredding a napkin. She looked older than I remembered, her hands shaking as she clutched her coffee cup. "I should have come forward sooner," she said after we sat down, "but they threatened my grandson's college fund, said they'd make sure he never got into a good school." "Take your time," Felicity said gently. "Tell us what happened." "It was late, maybe 11. Mr. Germain came bursting in, waving papers. He was shouting about insurance fraud, about people dying." Mrs. Victoria started crying, but it was fake. I'd seen those tears before. "Mr. Kent tried to buy him off, offered him money to keep quiet." My coffee grew cold as Margaret continued. "Mr. Germain refused, said he was going to the authorities. That's when Mr. James showed up. James Richardson was there." Felicity leaned forward. Margaret nodded. "They didn't know I was still in the house. I heard Mr. James say, 'Handle it or I'll handle it myself.' The next day," she choked up. "The next day, Mr. Germain had his accident." The diner seemed to spin around me. "Are you saying they had something to do with his death?" "I don't know for sure," Margaret whispered. "But that night after Mr. Germain left, I heard Mrs. Victoria on the phone. She said, 'Make it look natural.'" Felicity's phone buzzed. She read the message, her eyes widening. "June found something. We need to go, now." Back at the office, June had covered a wall with photographs and documents. "Look at this." She pointed to a series of text messages. The day of Jermaine's accident, James made 3 calls to a burner phone. The same number called Victoria right after Jermaine's crash was reported. That's circumstantial, Felicity warned. This isn't. June pulled up a video. Traffic cam footage from that day. Watched the silver car behind Jermaine's. We watched as a silver sedan deliberately swerved toward Jermaine's car, causing him to lose control. I ran the plates, June said quietly. The car was rented by one of James' shell companies. The room went silent. Finally, Felicity spoke. This isn't just a custody case anymore. This is murder. My phone chimed, a text from Trinity. Mom, there's a weird package here from Grandma Victoria. Don't open it. I texted back. Don't touch it. I'm coming home. I'll call the police, Felicity said, already dialing. June, get that video to my contact at the DA's office. Margaret, we'll need your testimony. The package sat innocently on my front porch, a simple brown box with Victoria's elegant handwriting. The police bomb squad approached it cautiously. It's clean, the technician finally announced, just photos and a note. The photos showed Jermaine and me in happier times. The note read, "It's not too late to drop the custody case. Don't make us handle this the hard way." Again, Trinity read the note over my shoulder. Mom, did they kill Dad? I pulled her close, feeling Stephen join our hug. I don't know, baby, but we're going to find out. And this time, they're not going to get away with it. Felicity appeared beside us. The DA wants to meet tomorrow. They're opening an investigation into Jermaine's death. What does that mean for the custody case? I asked. It means, Felicity smiled grimly, that Victoria and Kent just made their biggest mistake yet. They threatened you in writing with witnesses. Looking at my children's faces, I felt a fierce determination replace my fear. Then let's make sure it's their last mistake. Mom, Stephen asked, are we in danger? I met Felicity's eyes, seeing my own resolve reflected there. No, honey, they are. The courthouse buzzed with tension as Victoria and Kent's lawyer, Marcus, strutted before the judge. Your Honor, we have evidence that proves Miss Willow's instability and unfitness as a parent. I sat straight back beside Felicity, watching him present the doctored photos. My children sat in the gallery with June, their faces brave but worried. These photos, Marcus continued, show a pattern of negligence and substance abuse. Objection. Felicity stood. Your Honor, we can prove these images have been digitally altered. Approach the bench, Judge Reynolds ordered. As the lawyers huddled with the judge, Victoria caught my eye from across the courtroom, her smile cold and confident. Kent wouldn't meet my gaze, his attention fixed on his phone. These allegations are serious, Judge Reynolds announced. Miss Wong, you claim to have proof of tampering? Yes, Your Honor. Felicity gestured to our digital forensics expert who approached with his laptop. The metadata reveals extensive manipulation. Furthermore, we can prove these photos were actually taken at the defendant's residence. Victoria's smile faltered. But more concerning, Felicity continued, is the pattern of harassment and intimidation our client has endured. Marcus scoffed. Baseless accusations. Your Honor, Felicity interrupted. I call Margaret Thompson to the stand. Victoria's face went white as her former housekeeper walked to the witness stand. Kent finally looked up. His expression panicked. Miss Thompson, Felicity began, please tell the court what you witnessed the night before Jermaine Weaver's death. Objection. Marcus jumped up. This is irrelevant to the custody case. Your Honor, Felicity countered, it speaks directly to the defendant's character and their true motivations in seeking custody. Judge Reynolds leaned forward. I'll allow it. Proceed. Margaret's testimony fell like bombs in the quiet courtroom. With each revelation, I watched Victoria and Kent sink further into their seats. When she described the phone call about making something look natural, gasps echoed through the gallery. And this threat, Felicity held up the note from the package, arrived yesterday. The police have verified Mrs. Victoria's handwriting. Marcus scrambled to his feet. Your Honor, we request a brief recess. Denied, Judge Reynolds said sharply. Miss Wong, continue. Felicity nodded to June, who brought forward a laptop. We have traffic camera footage from the day of Jermaine's accident. I draw your attention to this silver sedan. As the video played, showing the deliberate swerve that caused my husband's crash, Trinity buried her face in June's shoulder. Stephen sat rigid, his small hands clenched into fists. The vehicle was rented by a company owned by James Richardson, Felicity concluded, who, coincidentally, is funding this custody battle. This is outrageous, Victoria suddenly shrieked, jumping to her feet. You have no right, Mrs. Victoria, Judge Reynolds warned. Sit down or I'll have you removed. You don't understand, Victoria continued, her composure cracking. She ruined everything. Jermaine was supposed to save our family name, restore our fortune. Instead, he chose her, this nobody, and then he threatened to expose us. Victoria, shut up, Kent hissed. But it was too late. The courtroom erupted in chaos. Bailiffs moved forward as Victoria continued her meltdown. James Richardson, who had been watching from the back, quietly slipped out the door. Order. Judge Reynolds banged her gavel. In light of these developments, this custody hearing is suspended. Bailiffs, please detain Mr. and Mrs. Victoria pending criminal investigation. Miss Wong, I trust you're sharing this evidence with the district attorney? Already done, Your Honor. As Victoria and Kent were led away in handcuffs, Victoria turned to me one last time. You'll regret this, she spat. You have no idea what you've done. I stood, finally finding my voice. No, Victoria. You did this. Every step of the way, you chose revenge over family, and now you've lost both. The judge called me forward. Miss Willow, in light of these events, I'm issuing an immediate permanent restraining order against your in-laws. Full custody remains with you. Court adjourned. Outside the courtroom, I hugged my children tight as reporters swarmed around us. Felicity handled the press while June Shepard